Well, it's not often a poet gets to follow a general, but we do have something in common. The university that General Powell graduated from, City University, is the university I've been teaching in for over 30 years. And I do want to thank the enlightened minds of the Institute for including in this heady week of conversations some representatives from the arts. I'm going to read 3 poems. I think if you haven't been to a poetry reading recently, you should know that it's a finite experience, and in this case, a fairly brief one. The first poem is, I'm reading, some of you have heard this yesterday, but I think it's appropriate. It's a very summertime poem, and I think a very American poem, and it's called The Lanyard. The other day, as I was ricocheting slowly off the pale blue walls of this room, bouncing from typewriter to piano, from bookshelf to an envelope lying on the floor, I found myself in the L section of the dictionary, where my eyes fell upon the word lanyard. No cookie, nibbled by a French novelist, could send one more suddenly into the past. A past where I sat at a workbench at a camp by a deep Adirondack lake, learning how to braid thin plastic strips into a lanyard, a gift for my mother. I had never seen anyone use a lanyard or wear one, if that's what you did with them, but that did not keep me from crossing strand over strand again and again until I had made a boxy red and white lanyard for my mother. She gave me life and milk from her breasts, and I gave her a lanyard. She nursed me in many a sick room, lifted teaspoons of medicine to my lips, set cold face cloths on my forehead, and then led me out into the airy light and taught me to walk and swim, and I in turn presented her with a lanyard. Here are thousands of meals, she said, and here is clothing and a good education, and here is your lanyard, I replied, which I made with a little help from a counselor. Here is a breathing body and a beating heart, strong legs, bones and teeth, and 2 clear eyes to read the world, she whispered. And here, I said, is the lanyard I made at camp. And here, I wish to say to her now, is a smaller gift, not the archaic truth that you can never repay your mother, but the rueful admission that when she took the 2-tone lanyard from my hands, I was as sure as a boy could be that this useless, worthless thing I wove out of boredom would be enough to make us even. Thank you. And the second poem is called, which has been the focus of much of this week, is called The Future. When I finally arrive there, and it will take many days, I would like to believe others will be waiting and might even want to know how it was. So I will reminisce about a particular sky, or a woman in a white robe, or the time I visited a narrow strait where a famous naval battle had taken place. Then I will spread out on a table a large map of my world and explain to the people of the future in their pale garments what it was like, how the mountains rose between the valleys, and this was called geography, how boats loaded with cargo plied the rivers, and this was known as commerce, how the people from this blue area crossed over into this light green area and set fires and killed whoever they found, and this was called history. And they will listen, mild-eyed and silent, as more of them arrive to join the circle like ripples moving toward, not away from, a stone dropped in a pond. And Finally, this is based on a photograph, not a single photograph, but a replicated photograph that comes in many versions, and it's a kind of photograph that I began seeing when I was old enough to look at a newspaper, and a photograph I will probably see soon. It's called Building with Its Face Blown Off. How suddenly the private is revealed in a bombed-out city. How the blue and white striped wallpaper of a second-story bedroom is now exposed to the lightly falling snow, as if the room had answered the explosion wearing only its striped pajamas. Some neighbors and soldiers poke around in the rubble below and stare up at the hanging staircase, the portrait of a grandfather, a door dangling from a single hinge. And the bathroom looks almost embarrassed by its uncovered ochre walls, the twisted mess of its plumbing, the sink sinking to its knees, the ripped shower curtain, the torn goldfish trailing bubbles. It's like a dollhouse view, as if a child on its knees could reach in and pick up the bureau, straighten a picture. Or it's like a room on a stage in a play, but with no characters, no dialogue or audience, no beginning, middle, and end, just the broken furniture in the street, a shoe among the cinder blocks, and a light snow still falling on a distant steeple, and people crossing a bridge that still stands. And beyond that, crows in a tree, the statue of a leader on a horse, and clouds that could be smoke. And even farther on, in another country, far away, on a blanket under a shade tree, a man pouring wine into 2 glasses, and a woman sliding out the wooden pegs of a wicker hamper filled with bread, cheese, and several kinds of olives. Thank you.